Our next guest, he comes from Palo Alto. His name is Jesús Díaz Barrero. He's a pre-sales system engineering manager for Spain and Portugal with more than 20 years of experience on the security space. So please give a big and warm applause to Jesús Díaz Barrero from Palo Alto. And the title is Fighting Malware with the Next Generation Security Platform. Jesús, thank you for coming here.
Thanks a lot.
I hope we enjoy of your lecture, of your title.
So.
And I see you like in about 45 minutes.
That's right.
If you have any questions or anything, we'll see you with Jesús later. Thank you, Jesús.
Thank you. Mucho.
Igualmente.
Thanks. Hello, guys. Good evening, everyone. So, yeah, the goal for the next 45 minutes is to show you how a modern security platform fights against real attacks, real malware. So the goal of the presentation will be like covering all the basics of what we are doing on a real company so that you get the best. Most of you are still studying, and I think that it's very interesting for everyone here to understand how real security is developed on a real company. So that's my goal for the, I would say, 25 minutes. And then I know it's tough time because after lunch, you know, I'm a Spaniard, so typically we have siesta. I know that maybe you are sleeping. I'm trying my best so that you don't get sleep. So basically, I'm going to run some real attacks and some small lab with some VMs so that you can get a bit of the better idea of what we are doing, and it's not just marketing bullshit, as we say in our space, okay? After that, and if time permits, I will be more than happy to answer any questions. And by the way, my friend and colleague Arkadiusz is also with me. We have a stand there, so very happy to receive you there and answer any questions that we cannot answer here. With that, let's start with the idea. So basically, the goal is to prevent malware. And we believe that in order to prevent malware, we really love the word prevent. We believe that security must always work around prevention. Detection is nice. It's probably a first step, but it cannot be only the end of your journey. If your journey ends on detection, then basically you are not doing anything positive against the issues. So that's why we love prevention. Everything that we do at Palo Alto Networks is around prevention. So basically, in order to prevent modern malware, we need to work in three main areas, highly simplified. So we need to take care of the attack vectors, also about the delivery methods, and finally, you need to think about how you can block. That's the end of the story. So very, very basic information. You probably are aware about all these. What are the main attack vectors? Here we have three of them. So we have exploits. Probably all of you know what are exploits. Tomorrow you're going to play probably a lot about exploits. Just in case someone is not aware, it's a small program that it's going to try to use some kind of vulnerability to make a program or an application work in a different way that it was originally planned by the author, by the programmer. There are many, many kind of different exploits. And of course, this is a way to deliver malware. Is malware always delivered via exploits? No. Every time that we have exploits, we have malware? Of course not. But it's clearly an attack vector. Another one are macros. They are getting really popular. You know, these are typically Office documents that embed some kind of executable content. And if you enable the macros, you can get, of course, the malware delivered. Typically, we have droppers or downloaders families that are using this kind of techniques. And in many cases, you have executables. And in this case, the attacker typically is using social engineering, and it's working very well. For instance, last year in Spain, there was a campaign where the attackers were impersonating an electricity company, and they were sending a binary that was supposed to be a PDF file telling you, hey, you know what? We have charged 800 euros on your last bill for the electricity. If you don't agree, please open the document and you will find out what's the problem. And many, many people was tricked with this basic idea. Even there were people that was tricked, even if they were not using this electricity company, they opened the document because it's inside the human being. And of course, if you are able to execute the content, you are providing full rights to the malware and it will execute. So when it comes to prevention and it comes to attack vectors, you need to take care of these three main vectors. Moving into the delivery methods, we can also, in a very simplified way, talk about three. We have exploit kits, and I'm sure that most of you already know what is exploit kit, but just in case someone is not aware, very easy. A user is visiting a compromised website. If the website which is compromised is highly reputable, it will probably work much better because it has much higher probabilities that the victim will click on it. Typically, they will use some hidden iframe, probably 1 by 1 pixels, these sort of things that are completely invisible for the human eye, and it's redirecting in the background the client to the malicious code. Then when you reach to the exploit kit webpage, typically what the exploit kit is doing is try to make a fingerprint, trying to understand which kind of device you are using in order to connect. Why? Because depending on the kind of device that you are using, they will inject a different kind of attack. So there are a lot of families around exploit kits. Probably you're aware about Neutrino, Angler, and many others. Some of them claim in the black market to have a 40% succeed rate, which is huge if you think about it, 40%. 4 out of 10 devices that reach these exploit kits are compromised, okay? After that, of course, once that you have the machine compromised, you can inject the malware or do whatever you want. So this is one of the delivery methods. Another one, it's the email attachment. Nothing specific here, okay? I attach my bill with trying to impersonate the electricity company, and if you double-click it, you're done. So very easy, nothing really to invest a lot of time here. There is a macro or whatever inside, or even if it's an attachment, it will run, and the user will get infected, or maybe, like in this example, you will get ransomware, your hard disk, or even the MBR will be ciphered, and everything, and the attackers will ask for the ransom. Last but not least, we have the drive-by downloads. They are quite similar to the exploit kits. Many of you probably are aware about them. Mainly, basically, a drive-by download is a download, but that is driven by the attacker. So what happens in the, behind the scenes is that the user visits a compromised website. Again, the website is serving some kind of exploit without the user noticing what is happening. Typically, again, it's very usual and very popular using invisible iframes. As I mentioned before, also for the exploit kits. This exploit is successful, and if it's successful, it will download the malware that will be installed afterwards. For those of you who are familiar with Metasploit, the typically payload that you will load for launching a drive-by download is a download exec. When you launch a download exec, you download the malware, and then you execute it. So this is a typical drive-by download. Okay? Easy, I guess that most of you are already aware. Now it's when it comes to the most difficult question, how we can block, how we can really prevent the attacks. I told you before that we are obsessed at Palo Alto Networks about blocking. Everything that we deliver, it's planned for blocking, for preventing. So you need to control, of course, multiple attack vectors and also the delivery methods. And the challenge today is that you need to do it at the perimeter, which is okay, but the problem is that the users are really mobile nowadays. So many times the perimeter is not enough because the perimeter is not even defined, it's not clearly defined. So we have SaaS. I'm going to do some examples later using a SaaS application. And of course, we need to take care of the endpoints because the endpoints move. For instance, today I'm outside the office. I'm here with you doing this session, and my laptop needs still to be protected. So this is the challenge for the companies that are working, trying to offer real protection to the market. So how do we, once that we have a clear view of how we see the landscape of the attacks, how the attackers move, they deliver the malware, etc., how we can block? Very, very simplistic approach. We are taking care of 3 main steps that I will show later, hopefully in my demo, if everything works fine. First, and probably foremost, we try to reduce the attack surface. This is critical for us. What do we mean, basically, with reducing the attack surface? Making this huge bullseye much lower, like in this example. And how are we doing this? I will explain now, but just first catch the idea. When talking about 100% security is stupid nowadays. If somebody ever told you about 100% security, this guy is lying to you, for sure, so it's impossible. But when we are talking about reducing the attack surface, we are making it much more difficult for the attacker to be able to attack us. We have even measured this. What I've been showing you here on this slide is a very interesting study that we ran through a Ponemon Institute. It's an institute that is doing a lot of studies about different aspects typically related with computer science. And in this case, it was held just for Europe. And basically what we ask them to do is make a broad interview of European hackers, trying to understand how they behave. So it was more kind of social aspect of the attackers. And what you see here you have the full report in case you are interested. We will share with everyone the slides so you can afterwards review it. But what I want to highlight here is when the attackers quit, when they decide that it's time to move to another target. Because your bullseye, it's so small that for me it's very difficult to make it. So after 5 hours, 13% of the attacks are deterred. 10 hours, 24%, 20 hours, 36% of the attacks deterred. 40 hours, less than 2 days, 60% of the attacks are deterred. This is not 100%, of course, never will be 100%, but as you can see, this is what we mean with reducing the attack surface. And this is always has been in the DNA of the company. This is what we've been trying to do since the very beginning. How do we do that? And here it is where it comes to the platform. So the first thing that we delivered was called Next Generation Firewall. It's this piece of image that you see here. Basically, the idea is it will process all the traffic. It will process all the traffic at layer 7, and this is where the difference comes, and it will be able to clearly understand without any specific configuration from the operator all the traffic, no matter which kind of ports it's running, and no matter what kind of configuration you need to run on it. So instead of telling you this is IP address 1111 going through port 80, it will tell you this is a session of web browsing, or this is a Facebook session, or there is an upload on Gmail, or there is a download on Gmail, or somebody is posting a tweet. That's the idea. It's the same way that we talk today. Why? Firewalls have been around many, many years ago. In fact, the protocol which is most used nowadays on firewalls, which is called stateful inspection, it was invented by Check Point back in 1982. Most of you even maybe were not still born. And the main idea behind that was using ports and protocol. Back in 1982, that was good. All the applications were following a non-written rule. Each application has its own port. Perfect. That was good in 1992. What happens today? Everybody knows. We have suffered what we call webization. So most of the modern apps are able to run on port 80 or port 443. So if my security device it's only learning about ports and protocols, I'm losing most of the information. So that's why we decided to do something layer 7. And the core of the solution is called AppID. You will see in action in a few minutes, okay? What does it mean? It means that I'm not going to allow anymore port 80 or port 443. I'm going to allow only those applications that I need to enable for my business, whatever it is. If I am in a university, I will allow all the applications required, for instance, for e-learning. If I am in the business of finance, I will allow only the applications that are required for my finance business and for making my money transactions or whatever. Probably most of them will run over port 443, but I'm not opening port 443 anymore. I'm just running the required applications. The next step is adding the user component, what we call user ID. What does this mean? This means that nowadays, users, as I mentioned before, are mobile. You cannot trust anymore just the IP address, because my IP address will change very frequently, doesn't it? So for instance, now I'm here connected via 4G. If I go back to my stand, maybe I have a Wi-Fi, or maybe I have a cable connection. But all this time, I am still Jesus. And Jesus has some rights inside this company. So what user ID is trying to do is, first of all, make a mapping of user equals IP address, or several IP addresses, because maybe I have different devices. Like now, I have my mobile phone here, and I have also my laptop, so I have at least 2 IP addresses. And it will also try to learn which role I have inside the company. And for that, we typically integrate with LDAP servers. So first thing, we are going to try to map IP address to users. I will show you. And then we will try to map user to role. So now we are trying to understand if I am a pre-sales engineer, or if I am working at the development, or if I am a threat researcher, because the rights that the system should give me are completely different. Hopefully you get the idea. Just by doing these 2 things, we get a 60% surface reduction of the bullseye, of my target. 60%. I'm not allowing anymore port 80, port 433, or port 25. I'm allowing the real applications. There is a lot of malware that is trying to hide inside well-known ports. I'm using port 443 outside because typically it's going to be open, and because typically it's going to be open and it's SSL, nobody will unencrypt it, and then I can just go. No way, no more. We will only allow a real application, for instance, YouTube, which is SSL, but it has to be YouTube, and only for the real user that is behind this application that has the required right. Okay, that was the first step in order to really prevent attack. Second step is how we can stop what we already know that is bad. And this is what we basically do in the second step. We are going to try to prevent the known threats. Preventing known threats means talking about URL filtering. I don't want to allow maybe porno web pages or malware web pages. It means doing IPS, IDS. It means doing anti-malware, antivirus. It means doing file blocking. Does it make any sense that at my company, everyone is capable of downloading an executable file? Probably not. We have departments where we have engineers that are taking care of the platforms and are doing the software installation. So why everybody at my company needs to download an executable file? It doesn't make any sense. So we can control that. And of course, talking also about DNS, command and control traffic, et cetera, et cetera. What we are doing here is basically feeding this platform with everything that we learn constantly that is known as malicious, and we inject it in form of signatures. And the main difference why it's working that well is because it's taking into consideration the application and the user as a context. So you will see in the demo, as an administrator, I just need to configure a basic policy saying I want to enable everything. Please put all my security on. When we create the company, we decided to create a very specific way of analyzing packets, which is called single PAL parallel processing, that allows us to enable everything without performance degradation. Okay? I know that it sounds very optimistic, but this is the way it works. If I have time later, I can explain you how it works. So basically, you enable everything. Now, the problem is, okay, good, you enable all your security, but I am really worried about the service. Typically, the service usually supersedes the security. Unfortunately, this is how it works. I'm working here because my service needs to be up. If the service is not up, I don't care about security. So I am worried about false positives. And this is where context comes in place. Basically, context means you enable everything, and the device automatically it's able to detect, okay, this is a Facebook session. So from all this security, I will pick up only those prevention mechanisms that are relevant to Facebook. Next session is FTP. Okay, from all these mechanisms, I will extract only, because I have this context, only those that are relevant to FTP. Probably you agree with me that making Facebook security over FTP makes no sense. So this is what the device makes automatically for you. So this is basically what we've been doing up to 2011. And we were quite happy. Problem is that the attackers are really smart, and they realized that it was possible to modify very easily the malware or the attacks themselves using something called polymorphism, which I'm sure every one of you are aware about it. And it was used many, many years ago, but we saw like a really reintroduction of polymorphism back in 2010, 2011. Basically, the idea is I can use some kind of automation, I will show you later as well, making a slight modification of my malware, and maybe I am able to bypass this system. So the third step is how I prevent unknown threats, because now this is unknown to me. I never saw it before. And for this, what we decided to do, and this was also unique in the market by that time, at the end of 2011, we decided to add a sandbox into the game. If I have time, I will show you as well later. And what is the sandbox doing? The sandbox is taking care of everything that is going here. So I identify the application. Is it the correct one? Yes or no? I identify the user. Is it the correct one? Does it have the required rights? I inspect the content. Is it clean or is it dirty? If it's dirty, I block it. And if it's not dirty, then there are two options. First option, and the desirable one, it's clean, and I should allow it. But the second option, which is not that nice, this is an unknown threat to me. I never saw it before, so instead of allowing it, I have to upload it to my sandbox. And I told you from the very beginning, we love prevention. I'm not going just to tell you after 5 minutes if it's good or if it's bad, I'm going to create automatically signatures on the fly. And I will inject all these signatures to all the devices worldwide. This sandbox has got that many importance, is such big that now it has become the best way for us to deliver new protection mechanism. We have even arranged agreements with competitors to share malware. And what we do with the malware that the competitors share with us, we inject it also here in order to create intelligence. So all of our intelligence right now is around wildfire, which, of course, can be a public sandbox or a private, on-premise one, for those customers who are concerned about sending sensitive information outside the perimeter, okay? So this was like the second high innovative milestone in the history of the company. Third one is we need to take care of the endpoint. And we are talking about endpoint, we are talking maybe about traffic which is cipher, and I'm not unciphering here, so I cannot see it. Or maybe I'm talking about a sensitive document that I haven't inspected before. Or maybe I'm talking about an endpoint which is out of the office, and all the traffic that is moving is not going here. So basically, for that reason, we developed a solution which is called Traps, which basically tries to do two things. It tries to prevent zero-day exploits, and it tries to prevent unknown attacks, unknown malware. How does it work? I was discussing this before with some of you outside on the stand. I don't have a lot of time, but very quickly. For the exploits part, if it's an unknown exploit, if it's 0 day, it's 0 day, of course, also for us. So what we are doing, you know that nowadays, in order for an attacker to exploit a vulnerability, they need to utilize a lot of different techniques. Thanks to God, the modern operating systems have put in place a lot of countermeasures to make the life of the attackers more complex. You know, ASLR, DEP, protection of the DLLs, this kind of stuff. So the attacker, once that it finds a vulnerability and wants to exploit it, needs to use some techniques. We don't know the vulnerability, and we never saw the exploit before, but we know the techniques. So what are we doing here? We are trying to detect the utilization of the techniques. Maybe it's trying to use a heap spray, probably you know about it, or maybe it's trying to search a rope chain for building a rope, some rope gadgets for building a rope chain and execute some code, etc. This is what we are doing here. Okay? And of course, for the malware part, it's also connected with wildfire. So every time we try to execute something here, we can ask malware to wildfire. Do you know if it's malware? Even it has a local analysis motor, engine, which is based upon machine learning, and it's able to detect variants of existing malware without connection to the cloud, which is also pretty amazing. I will show you now. So this is basically the idea of security platform for Palo Alto Networks. There is one last step, one last thing, which is really critical. It's SSL decryption. If you are not thinking about SSL decryption, you're going to fail in many cases, specifically when you're talking about the network. Why? Because, as you know, today, roughly 50% of all the traffic is encrypted. And everything that you cannot unencrypt or you cannot see, you cannot protect. So if you don't unencrypt traffic, your only chance is working on the endpoint, okay? And yeah, this is all about. This is how we construct very quickly in 20, 25 minutes the message of Palo Alto Networks. And as I promised, this is the platform with a nicer drawing than this handwriting. So we have the firewall, we have the threat cloud, intelligence cloud, and we have also the endpoint solution. And now, as promised, I want to show you all the solution working, so that this is not just slides. So let's see if this works. I hope so. So what I have here, I have several VMs. One of those VMs, it's a firewall. It's a VM firewall, okay? And we're going to start with something very basic. I'm going to try to show you how we can talk about reducing the attack surface. So for that, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try to bypass my firewall. What I'm going to do, I'm going to configure my firewall as a layer 4 device. One of these old firewalls, which are still highly utilized in the real market, where I want to enable only this policy. Look, I have called my policy only HTTP, and see, I have the devices configured layer 3, so it has basically, using the VMware bridge network, it has 2 networks. one which I call trust, another one which I call untrust, and the firewall is doing the routing between both of them. And I am allowing everything that goes from trust to untrust using service HTTP, which in Palo Alto Network means port 80, okay? Easy, easy. So, and then I'm going to disable this rule. And then I have the typical deny all. Everything else will be denied, okay? Very easy. I'm going to commit all my changes. And now what I'm going to simulate, I'm going to try to bypass my firewall. How am I going to bypass my firewall? I'm going to inject traffic that is going to travel through port 80, but is not in reality web browsing. For that purpose, I'm going to use Netcat. I'm sure that all of you are completely familiarized with Netcat. So let's try to do that. So here in the Mac, I have Netcat. I will put it on the top of the screen so everybody can see it. I have Netcat running on port 80. This is on the untrust side of the communication. And now I have a Windows 7, which has Netcat installed as well, simulating, for instance, that this machine has been compromised. And you know that via Netcat, you can include a cell. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to inject a cell through port 80, okay? Is it easy? Yes? So Netcat minus, I'm sorry guys, because with the definition you cannot see, minus e cmd.x against my untrust IP. Simulating web traffic. Is this web browsing or is not web browsing? What do you think? It's not. But look what happens. If I go to my Mac, yes, I got a connection. Dir, version, format, no, okay? Why? If my firewall is so smart, if I promise you from the very beginning that we are so smart, why I have been able to bypass it? Because I'm just using layer 4 port. This is the real problem. And this is what we are talking about, reducing the attack surface. If we take a quick look to the logs, we will find something interesting. Let's filter on port 80 so that you can get a better view of what I mean. Here I am. Okay. So I have this session from trust to untrust through port 80. It's allowed. But look, it's smart. Is it web browsing? No, it's a noun TCP. And even it's taking a capture, a pickup, so that you can further later analyze what kind of traffic is going here, because this is a noun. This is not really web browsing. I have allowed it because you have told me to do so. So what I mean with reducing the attack surface, what I need to do now? Should I enable the IPS? Should I enable URL filtering? No, not at all. Just layer 7 security, okay? Let's do it here in real time, very easy. Now my policy, I will change, and I will add the application here. Now I want to allow web browsing, only web browsing. Only that. Here I have all the profiles, security profiles, but I'm not touching that. I commit my changes, and look what happens. I'm going to put this here on the top of the screen so that everybody can see it. I repeat exactly the same operation. It's finishing. Yes, it's done. Let's try again. And, oops, this is the demo effect. What do you think? No, it's not. Look. Ah, it's blocked. Wow, this is interesting. What happened? Come on, guys. You are brilliant brains. What do you think that has happened? How can the firewall know if this is web browsing or not web browsing? What is the first thing that will happen on a TCP connection? Three-way handshake. During the three-way handshake, there is no layer 7 payload. I have no idea of if this is really web browsing or not. So I have to allow the connection. Once that I start to see layer 7 traffic, I can block it. Yes? Hopefully it makes sense. I'm running out of time, so I cannot dedicate much more time. Now, if we look at the traffic, it will see the same, but now, look, now it's denied, because it's not web browsing anymore. No IPS, no URL filtering. This is attack surface reduction. Okay? Let's move now into injecting a user into my firewall. So I'm going to use typically everything from inside to outside is allowed with security profiles, okay? In order for us to inject users, We have different methods. We can learn them from an Active Directory server, or we can get them from a captive portal, and we also have an API. Everything in Palo Alto Networks is open. We have an API for injecting users from the external world, and this is what I'm going to use. In this case, via the API, you can do whatever you want, including injecting users. So I'm going to inject this user. This is the format. Login, entry name, Windows 7, this is the IP address, success. Of course, you can make a script to run this, and at this moment, if I, for instance, generate some traffic, like a ping to Google, for instance, and we filter the logs, I'm going to filter, for instance, by application ping, we should start seeing the source user. You see it here? Here we are. And now, of course, if I would have here an LDAP server, I could start integrating this with my LDAP server and learning which roles this Win7 user has. It belongs to the administrative department, to the marketing department, it's a techie guy, it's not a techie guy, etc. Okay? So, in order to finish with my demo and leave room to the next conference, I want to show you how to work against malware. So for that purpose, I'm going to download some, or to upload, it doesn't matter, some samples that I have here. This is a box folder. It's something similar to Dropbox. And, of course, if I want to prevent attacks here, what I have to do first? This is SSL. If I don't enable SSL decryption, I'm not going able to inspect this. So, first of all, I will check if I have SSL decryption enabled or not. I'm going to my policies. Decryption, as you can see, is disabled. I will enable it. And what I'm decrypting all the traffic from the layer 3 trust network side to the untrust, and only for the online and storage and backup category. Why? Because maybe my users are concerned that I am decrypting traffic when they are going to a health department or maybe to a financial institute to check if they have been paid with money or whatever. So that's why I'm only decrypting this traffic. So we commit the changes. Again, very quickly, every time that we work with Palo Alto Networks, you have a candidate config and a running. When you make the commit, you make the candidate running, okay? So now it's running. Once that it finishes, cool. And now I can try to see what happens if, for instance, I take a well-known piece of malware, like this BRB bot, which is a botnet from 2 or 3 years old. If I try to upload it, uploading, oops, failed. Why? Let's take a look to the logs. Now I'm moving to the threat part, and we should receiving exactly. You see, this is a wildfire virus. And look, very interesting. Port, it's 443. The attacker, it's the Windows 7, which is uploading, but the application is not SSL, it's Boxnet. Why? Because I am encrypting all that traffic, and I can now inspect it. Yes? Lastly, I'm going to try to make something different. I'm going to try to create a mutation, a polymorphism variant of this BRB bot. For that, I'm going to use this tool. It's very easy. It's just making a modification on the header of the PE file, on the portable executable, by modifying by adding the timestamp. So every time I execute it, I'm creating a completely new variant of the same malware, okay? So I can show you how we behave against polymorphism. Look, I have here this variant, and we will mutate it over this folder. Mutate, it has done the mutation. If we take a look to the mutated folder, here we have it. I didn't want to show you this. Let's call it VRBbot Málaga, okay? And you see the hash, the original one and the new one, okay? So now what happens if I try to upload this here? Let's see. It's a completely new version that the attacker has created. If I try to upload it, it failed again. Why? Because the way, and here we should have a new entry. Why? Because, you see the new entry? Because the way that we are developing signatures is based upon the content and not upon the hash. If my signatures are just hash-based, how many signatures I need? As many as files. In this case, it's based upon the content and upon the payload. This is a really powerful mechanism, guys. Just to end with my session, let's take a look to the endpoint. I promised you also that I was showing you. So if I try to execute the first variation of my malware, of my botnet, Traps will detect it. This is the endpoint agent installed. If we take a look to the details, why this malware has been detected, look, the reason, it was known to Wildfire. Yes, Gore? It is a very old version. So it's known. Now, what happens with the new version that I just created? Let's try to run it. BRB bot Málaga is the same content, but inside a different envelope. So it looks like new malware. If I run it, what do you think? This is known to Wildfire or it is unknown? Of course, it's unknown. It's been uploaded now in parallel, but it's unknown. But if I look at the details, why it now has been again stopped, in this case, is because the local analysis engine that I mentioned before. You remember? The machine learning. So this clearly demonstrates that we are able even to prevent polymorphic unknown attacks without connection, thanks to the different mechanism included into the local analysis, which basically is a static analysis, for those of you who are aware about it. And yeah, with that, I'm done. I hope that this was interesting for you guys. I don't know if we have time for questions. I'm not sure if we really have time. Yes, we have? Okay, so my pleasure if someone has any question. If not, in the meantime, I will close everything. Muy bien, bien, bien.
Hello, any questions on the floor? I'm sure
No
among the
questions.
assistants there's some questions. No? Yes?
They are really bored. I bored
Ah,
everyone.
yeah, there's one over there. Qué bien. Do you have any mic? Any micro? Creo que me va a tocar a mí llevarte el micro. Ah, no, tenemos
There's
a
a
alguien.
microphone there, yeah.
¿Podemos subir, por favor?
Can you please take the microphone up towards the right? Yes, there it is. Jesus, this is for you.
More or less at the beginning you said that with the competitors you reach a sort of agreement for sharing what you are detecting.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end my question is if you are using some specific, I don't know, standard or method for representing what you are detecting in order to share this information with competitors or partners in order to speed up all the processing phase when these information are received, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, my question is if you are using open source solution or well-known standards, or if you are using, I mean, private solutions for representing this kind of information.
Okay, so it's a very good question. Basically, the project that we created for this purpose, it's called CTA, in case you are interested to take a look. It means Cyber Threat Alliance. It was founded originally back in 2013 by Fortinet, McAfee, Symantec, and Palo Alto Networks, and now it has spread to many, many other vendors, and it has evolved over the time. So the tool that we are using for measuring what each member has to upload, because everyone is forced to upload new information every day because we are competitors, so we want to be sure that all of us are collaborating, it's a VirusTotal. So you have to upload at least 1,000 new samples per day that are unknown to VirusTotal, for instance. That's one of the metrics. There are many others. And regarding the way that we are sharing information, yes, we are using a standard mechanism. Right now, we are using Styx Taxi, and some of the members are proposing moving into MISP. I don't have a lot of details around that, but because they are private, but this is how it works. So yes, we are using a standard. Even we are creating papers with what we found once that we analyze all the information that all the members are collaborating with. That's
but good. The conversion of what you are detecting, what you are detected is done.
It's automatically
manual.
done in Wildfire.
Okay, it's done in an automated way. Okay, okay.
So every time I receive something, for instance, that it's coming from Symantec, I inject that into Wildfire, so my engine is able to detect if it's really malware or not, according to our rules. And if it's malware, it's generating the same kind of signature that I've shown you here. And it's sharing all this information to all the subscribers into Palo Alto Networks. It doesn't matter if endpoint, network, or both. Very good question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. We have another question, Jesus.
Sure. Not too difficult, please. Otherwise, I will run.
No, it's easy. I want to ask, like similar to Mario's question. What kind of operation you are doing on this kind of cyber information data? For example, like, are you doing when you are sharing this information, cyber threat information, with other company? So you are doing some kind of operation on this information. So can you give us an example of what kind of operation you are doing on this data?
Okay, so yes, in fact, we have another solution around all this threat intelligence cloud, which I didn't have that time today to present, but which is called Out of Focus. And basically, this is a huge big data system, which basically what it's doing is with every time that we find a new malware sample, we dissect it into what we call artifacts. What is an artifact? An artifact is any kind of behavior that a malware sample has. For instance, let me give you some examples. It's creating a temporal file on the temporal folder, or it's modifying this registry, or it's doing some kind of modification on the hard disk, or whatever. And we are able to cross all this information, correlate it all around the big data system, and cross it in order to create or facilitate the operations of the SOC teams. So you can, for instance, find a new behavior. You are not sure if it belongs to a known malware family or not. You can upload this as a request to the big data system, even via an API, and automatically it will report you all the malware families that are known. Even it can inject or create IOCs for you in form of IP addresses. Maybe you can inject them into a system that you are operating to protect DNS, if there is some DNS around, or URLs. So, yeah.
So in case of there is a cyber incident, so in this case, can you able to respond to these incidents? Do you get this information from other competitors or other company? For example, if there is cyber incidents in electric infrastructure, so you get this incidents.
We get this information.
Are you able to respond? Do you have procedure or policy to respond this, help them maybe, or provide them consultation on this situation?
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good question as well. Yes, we have a team for that, which is called Unit 42, and they are responsible for that. Even, it doesn't matter if it's a customer or not, we offer those services to anyone who is interested. So if one of the customers or prospects is being penetrated or being attacked, as you mentioned, we can offer these consultancy services, yes. And we can even send what we call a fly and fix engineer. Fly and fix means exactly that. We can even move people there to help them. It has happened sometimes. For instance, when the incidents from WannaCry that every one of you remember, we had to do that with a couple of companies here in Spain. So yes, we have that kind of service.
Okay, so thank you very much, and we please give another applause to Jesús Díaz Barrero. Thank you, Jesus, for being with us this afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you.